current Mayor John Tecklenburg, Clay Middleton, Peter Shahid, and William Cogswell are all candidates for mayor of Charleston. Today, I talk exclusively with Peter Shahid for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook.
Peter Shahid, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
It's been a long time. You've been avoiding me.
But I'm here now because...
I'm glad you are.
Yeah, because obviously you are a candidate for mayor of Charleston.
I am.
Tell me why mayor, why now?
I ran for city council back in 2015 because I thought there were some issues that needed to be addressed citywide, in particular West Ashley. And we were successful with creating the West Ashley Revitalization Commission. And I think we've had some good progress with that. I was very supportive of Mayor Tecklenburg when he ran, and we worked together on my campaign as well. But over time, I have observed some things that have occurred on City Hall, and I think it's time for a change in leadership.
What things have occurred at City Hall that you're unhappy with and the residents are unhappy with?
I think there's several things that we can call attention to. The lack of progress on the Revitalization Commission is one of the main factors. We have not seen the level of progress I wanted on the redevelopment of the Sumar Street site. We've been working on that since March of 2016. The city acquired the property. We have gone out to the community to get input from the community as what we are looking for. We bid out to get public private interest in that, and we've got a good partner with Landmark. But the development from that point on has been tediously slow. We have not met the deadlines I think we needed to be making. This is such an important project for the city, for West Ashley. It's not getting the attention that the mayor's office needs to be addressing to it. We've seen very little progress with Citadel Mall. That's in private hands. And there are other issues along West Ashley that need to be addressed. A more vigorous annexation process, stormwater issues that need to be addressed. We've been sort of just hitting the tip of the iceberg with flooding issues in West Ashley. But that also applies not only to West Ashley, it applies to other parts of the city, particularly downtown, and particularly to the James Island as well. So we've got some serious issues dealing with, I think, just a very basic lack of leadership by the mayor's office. In addition, I was dismayed by the lack of leadership from the mayor's office regarding what happened back in May of 2020. I give a lot of credit to Chief Luther Reynolds on the response to that riot. He acted very quickly. There were some early mistakes made that I think he recuperated from. And I think that his actions, the actions of those police officers protecting our streets that night were violent. However, the mayor was not in tune with what was going on. That evening, I was on the phone with Mr. Chief Greenberg, back and forth with Chief Reynolds. Thank you. And after that happened, the mayor did not stand up and follow through with the people who were involved, the main agitators involved in that riot, going to court, making sure that they were prosecuted, making sure that they were sentenced, standing up on behalf of the city of Charleston, ensuring that this doesn't happen, and sending a message that you don't come into our town and do that sort of stuff. And this is a total lack of leadership on the mayor's part as to standing up for the citizens of Charleston and protecting the citizens. That's the number one responsibility of a mayor, is to stand up and to protect our citizens.
Did this mayor tell the officers to stand down?
There was no evidence of that we did an investigation, an internal investigation. But I will tell you this.
Yes, sir.
That during that course of that night, and I remember this very vividly, the mayor did not want to impose a curfew. And that's the first line of defense against a riot, is that you immediately, as soon as you were legally able to do that, institute a curfew. Charleston County had instituted a curfew, right, and the mayor wanted to rest on that. Well, Hello, guess what? The city of Charleston straddles two counties, Charleston County and Berkeley County. So what happened if something was going to happen over in Berkeley County? There's no curfew over there, and you've got a citywide curfew that the city ordinance and city council enacted, so your police officers can enforce a city curfew, not a county curfew. And his lack of understanding that just showed a total lack of understanding of what the crisis that was confronting us that night and what we needed to be doing. So while it may not have been a stand down, there wasn't a stand up order.
Did Chief Reynolds wanted to encourage?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
He caught on very fast as to what was going on. He acted quickly. Unfortunately, we were playing catch up, but he was able to recruit and bring in a lot of law enforcement agencies into the mix to come in and shore up the troops that we had out there that night, the officers we had out there that night.
How many officers did you all have out there that night?
If you had asked me that earlier, I could have gotten that number for you. I do know that number. I just don't. That was back in 2020. I don't remember the exact number. But we have a police force of around 400 and something officers. So you had a mob out there.
So what were the early mistakes that the mayor made, in your mind?
With the riot?
Yes, sir.
I think that you've got to pay attention to what was going on nationally and statewide with that. We knew that there were going to be issues up in Columbia. Chief Reynolds was aware of that, and he had made a commitment to the chief of police in Columbia to send some of our folks up there. So we knew that there were some things happening in here. Now, we've gone back and we can say that we didn't have the intelligence out there knowing what was going on and suspecting this. This was like a flash fire that occurred. Not saying on top of that, not saying in direct communication or regular communication and feeling what was going on, because as you remember, there was a peaceful assembly. People were assembling, they were permitted, and we all sort of anticipated that was going to happen. But that turned violent very quickly after that. And that first moment, when you see these flashes of a fire coming out, that's when you needed to be direction. The mayor is responsible, okay, to direct the chief, what is going on, what is taking place, what kind of actions are we doing. I was on the phone with Chief Reynolds having those kind of conversations.
So what other conversations did you all have? Because obviously you just mentioned the mayor did not follow through after this riot took place.
Right. And so when the riot was over, we were out there on King Street. All the council members were out there. We had mops and brooms and shovels, and we're pitching in, cleaning up. At that point in time, the mayor should have stood up somewhere on King Street, bring in a flatbed truck with a megaphone and park it right in the middle of Calhoun and King Street and say, not in my town. You will not do this in my town. And those people who are responsible should be punished, and I'm going to make sure I go to court and stand up for the citizens of Charleston to make sure this doesn't happen. That's leadership. And his failure to do that is a failure to stand up for the citizens of Charleston and stand up for those of us who need to be protected against this kind of violence.
So when you all did go to court, that is, who in the city, within the mayor, represented the city?
I made phone calls to the federal prosecutor's office to find that out. I made inquiries. I wanted to find out when those were transpired. I think Chief Reynolds was in contact with that. But Chief Reynolds is not the chief executive officer of the city. He's a chief of police. The mayor is a chief operating officer. He's the head of this organization. He's a spokesperson for the city. I know in times when Mayor Wiley had some things happen, he showed up in federal court. He spoke out. He said, I'm here on behalf of the citizens of Charleston. That's what a leader looks like. That's what a leader's supposed to be doing.
So what should he be doing now to make sure that King Street and other areas of Charleston are protected?
Well, we just had a shooting back in May, and we had a public safety committee meeting to learn about the details of that, and we made some adjustments regarding that. We just had another city council public safety meeting on what happened back in September. So you had these bookend shootings on King Street, and I said, the traditional beginning of the summer and the traditional end of the summer, May through September, we've got a crowd of young people who are assembling down there, and they're all underage. A good portion of them are underage, and they're carrying guns. Now, why are they down there? What is attracting them down there, and what steps do we need to be taking? And so there's more work to be done about that. We may have to, and we're going to be discussing this, we may have to impose a curfew for young people after hours. I don't know. We got to come up with other ideas and solutions. In regular communication with the chief as to what he thinks we need to be doing. Okay. But a curfew is something that we've been batting around, and I think we need to be moving in that direction. Particularly when it deals with young people. If there are young people under the age of 21 carrying guns, there's a problem. And they're down there at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. That's a problem. And that's sort of the issues I think we need to be addressing head on with King Street.
So in your conversation with the chief, Peter, do they know how many underage kids with guns are down there on King Street at that time of night?
Well, they know, they have an idea because when they are making an arrest, and they make an arrest for some other event, and during the course of the arrest, they pat them down to find a gun, they have that information. But they don't have x-ray vision to say, oh, this guy has a gun, this guy doesn't have a gun. But if they see a gun brandished, or a gun in someone's waistband, or what appears to be a gun, that gives them an indication, of course, of what's taking place out there. So, but during the course of an arrest or course of a detention, yes, they're finding guns.
So, where are these people coming from, the underage kids? Are they local?
What we understand, for the most part, they're not locals as far as citizens of Charleston. From what we're been advised, they're outside of the city of Charleston area.
What do you mean outside?
They could be from North Charleston. They could be from Goose Creek. They could be from Berkeley County. Outside of West Ashley, outside of James Island. So they're putting together a little bit more information for us to narrow that down. But we do know that they're not, in our colloquial term, locals.
Wow. And speaking of locals, as you know, the city is growing a lot.
Yes.
Do you know how many cities the city actually gained last year?
I know that our population is up to 150,000. The city is moving, and if you would ask me that question, I would have that information for you, because I do have that information available. We're growing around at least 10% or more almost per year.
Wow.
So as you know, we had to readjust our redistricting lines because the growth over on Johns Island, the growth over on Daniel Island, the growth over in outer West Ashley is catching up. And I met with I received from the planning department the projected growth for the next several years as to how that is transpiring. West Ashley represents about close to, not exactly, but close to half of this total city's population.
Whoa. Let me take you to Johns Island and let me ask you this. Where is your comprehensive plan for traffic issues on Johns Island?
We have a comprehensive overall plan for Johns Island. But we were stumbling with it was in the paper the other day about the announcement of the pitchfork.
Oh, yes.
That should have been done and should have been accomplished years ago. That would have provided immediate relief. 526 needs to be built.
Okay.
It needs to be built. It has to have. I've seen the plans for that. I've met with the county officials as to what those plans look like, and the improvements on traffic over on Johns Island. I've been on Johns Island.
Right.
I went to see some folks who had some concerns about some development on Johns Island. I went out there on a Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, and I went into traffic. I thought, oh my goodness, this must be an accident out here. There was no accident. This is normal traffic. Not normal traffic. It was just regular traffic out there on a Sunday afternoon. I went, goodness, if this is what it's like on Sunday in the afternoon, what are these folks suffering from traffic during what we normally call rush hour in the morning and rush hour in the afternoon? And I can only imagine how that's exasperated during a rainstorm or during there's even a small fender bender type accident. It creates such a headache for those folks. We've got to give them relief over on Johns Island. And the other issue that I think they can alleviate some of the traffic things is that we know in traffic patterns, people travel, if they live in a certain area, they're traveling to work. So one of the things you can be addressing is, what can we do to bring jobs onto Johns Island? What type of do the study as to why are people commuting from Johns Island into the peninsula or to West Ashley or to North Charleston, and can we start enticing some local businesses over on Johns Island? Also, people on Johns Island need what everybody else needs: grocery stores, pharmacies, parks, laundromats, hardware stores.
Sure.
So you have those type of infrastructure needs. That shortens down the commute process for folks. They have more recreation facilities. They're not traveling off of Johns Island for those recreational facilities. Social events, Piccolo Spoleto.
Sure.
Let's start doing that sort of stuff on Johns Island and Daniel Island a lot more, and James Island and West Ashley. Now, take for example what happened when the American University opened up the ambulatory center at the Epic Center on Citadel Mall. The estimates were there were 6,000 less cars going into downtown Charleston because that ambulatory center, you have doctors, nurses, technicians working there, patients coming there, and then the aftercare of locating the doctors in the nearby office complexes. That reduces the number of traffic. That's just simple math on doing that, and we need to carry that kind of message and that kind of planning into other parts of the city.
The infrastructure needs that Johns Island needs right now. Where is that infrastructure?
Well, that's a loaded question. Where that infrastructure is, because when you talk about infrastructure, you talk about roads, you talk about water, you talk about sewage, you talk about utilities, and you've got to make sure that you're keeping up with all that. At the same time, with the development, you got to make sure that your stormwater manual is fully in effect, and that you are protecting the residents from rainy day floods, storm floods, things of that nature.
So, what is your stormwater manual plan?
Well, I sat on the ad hoc committee several years ago in which we were redefining and redoing the stormwater manual. That brought us up to industry standards as to what we need to be doing on new development and major renovation projects, rehabilitation projects. And we're up to that. I think we've got a very good plan with all that. We passed that stormwater manual. A very important aspect of that is when on the corner of San Wittenberg and Orange Grove Road, the Parkers was developed. That was a brand new development plan. There was a little Exxon station there. Parkers came in, but I watched, and it was directed to how they had to have subterranean stormwater flood controls. It was really quite fascinating in that area. And that area was not known for a major concern of flooding, but they were required to use the new standards out there, and it's really quite interesting how they handle that. So that works. And now we're working on other problems with development that has occurred over on Ashley Landing, over into the Charleston Estate section. And I just drove by and saw the work that's being taking place on a ditch up on the back part of that. But when you do new development, or when you do major redevelopment of area, you need to make sure that we're up to the standards from A to Z on stormwater manual.
So what are the industry standards right now?
Well, you asking me technical questions about industry standards, Quintin, and I didn't memorize the book. If you want to bring the book out and go through sections, I'll go through that. But there's 1,000 scenarios dealing with particulars as to, and that's what that's why we have engineers,
right?
Okay, and that's why we have folks who are versed in that and understand the particulars of all of those things. Now, I'm not an engineer, but I do know that as a policymaker, we need to follow the science on all of this and follow the engineering levels that we need to impose to make sure that's taken care of.
So what are those levels right now?
Quintin, you asking me specific questions about what's in a manual, and that's not being fair to me to ask. It's not being fair to your audience to ask me those kind of questions. If you want me to, if you come,
you're running for mayor.
I'm running for mayor, and if you have a specific question to me, like you asking me on specific issues, on particular numbers,
you've been on council since 2015.
I have, but I don't memorize the stormwater manual. And if you challenge me on a stormwater manual on very particular issues, I challenge you to ask every particular person, go to page 5, chapter 15, and ask them the specific questions as to what's in the particular manual. Now, I know that there's a manual. I worked on making sure that manual was implemented. You asked me what's in the Plan West Ashley. I can't tell you exactly what's on page 15 of the Plan West Ashley. That's why you have a book. If you have a particular question and ask me in advance so I'm prepared to answer that question for you specifically, I'll do that. But don't ambush me.
It's not ambushing.
You are ambushing me.
No, I'm not.
That's exactly what you're doing.
No.
It's not fair to your viewers. Hang on a second. Now, if you've got a specific question as to what's on a particular page,
well, we can just let's just end it then.
This is your interview. I'm glad to meet with you. But if you've got a specific question on a general issue about policy things, about stormwater, about Plan West Ashley, about crime, I can answer those questions for you. But if you're asking me to cite chapter and verse,
I'm not doing that.
That's exactly what you're asking.
No, I'm not.
No. Then ask me another question then.
Okay. You talk about 526. So the cost of the 526 extension over Johns Island is obviously now, as the previous estimate for the extension is outdated, and a lot of things contribute to the new price tag for the project. So what are the current market conditions for construction?
Whether the current what?
Market construction.
Market construction.
Conditions. Yes, sir.
I don't know the answer to that question, Quintin. I just know this, that we have worked with the county and the state to come up, and this is mainly a county and state function. The city supports those issues on what needs to be done to construct 526.
Well, what are the real estate costs for the alignment of this project?
What are the real estate what?
Alignment project costs.
I don't know the answer to that question, Quintin.
Let me ask you this. What preliminary work do you expect before this project is actually shovel ready then?
Well, I think and this is not a city project.
I know.
You understand that?
I completely, I know.
And so the mayor has very limited control over exactly as to this. But the mayor has the ability to help work and cooperate with the state and the county on having that done. Now, the county, I know, has bought, or the state has bought land already and predetermined that.
Right.
What are the market values of those lands right now? I don't know.
Let me ask you this. Let me go back to the city. So what has been the growth rate in the city over the past 10 years?
Quintin, I think, and I maybe stand corrected on this, but the city grows at a minimum of 10% per year. And I believe that's the correct standard. If you want me to go pull out the statistics, I have them. I know that the city has grown substantially over time from every 10 years. Our budget has grown about this close to the same rate over the same period of time as well.
So what constraints and threats do you see as far as the future population growth?
The constraints that you have to make sure is that you've got the infrastructures in place to handle all that. As the growth, and infrastructure includes, of course, streets, sidewalks, sewer, water, things of that nature. And then you also, as well, you've got to take in consideration parks, playgrounds, things of that nature as well.
And I want to get back to that in just a second. I know you have a quiet
you were late, and I've got to end the interview because I'm 15 minutes for another. I had a meeting at 9:30.
But let me ask you one last question. From the Post and Courier in 2021, 10 local governments funneled allegedly $7.8 million in public funds.
Slow down in your question to me, Quintin. Slow down. Ask me the question slowly, please.
From the Post and Courier in 2021, 10 local governments funneled allegedly $7.8 million in public funds to Explore Charleston, the Low Country's tourism destination. When Explore Charleston was asked how those funds were spent, they reportedly didn't have any answers. If you become mayor, Peter, what proven performance metrics would you want to see before giving this organization any type of money in the future? It's taxpayers' money.
It is taxpayers' money, and it involves several local governments in doing that. And I would want to see a more detailed report from that.
Charleston City Council.
I got to stop you. You were late coming to my interview.
Because I asked.
Hold on a second. You were late coming to the interview. I have a court appointment at 9:30, and it's 9:45.
We get it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.